If you want to keep your hips pain-free and moving well, you've got to understand the 3 fundamental reasons why hips get painful and sore. You'll learn all about these 3 reasons in this video and get 6 exercises that'll take you less than 10 minutes to do to keep your hips moving freely and without pain. Welcome, Coach E here for Precision Movement. And if your hips bother you, today we're going to make them right. And we're going to get right into it because Dr. B and I are super busy working on a course for professionals. So whether you're a personal trainer, massage therapist, physio, yoga instructor, doctor, chiro. If you're interested in learning more about our methods and how to use them to get your clients quick results and results that last, we'll drop a link down below where you can learn more about this upcoming course. In the intro, I mentioned 3 fundamental reasons why hips can get sore and painful. The first is poor muscle activation, or muscles that go to sleep completely. You might have heard the term gluteal amnesia, which is when the glutes tend to shut off and not work when they're supposed to. And this term was coined by my old prof at the University of Waterloo, Dr. Stu McGill. And with the glutes, if we sit on them and squish them all day, they tend to shut off. So when we go to need them, whether it's for squatting or playing tennis or going for a jog or just bending over to pick stuff up, those muscles are hard to activate, which makes that movement pattern risky. Because we don't have this powerful muscle group contributing to that movement, other muscles or areas of the body get overloaded and wear out. This goes to the old saying, use it or lose it. This applies to everything in our body. If we don't use it, eventually we're going to lose it. The second fundamental we need to keep ourselves pain-free is active range of motion. And active is the key word there. Passive range of motion is where, let's say a therapist picks up your leg and gives you a hamstring stretch. That's an example of passive range of motion or flexibility. Active range of motion is if you're lying on your back and you're lifting your leg up on your own. And this is what we need for mobility. So if we don't have active range of motion, we're not going to be able to move and do the things that we need. Again, use it or lose it applies. If we don't use our muscles through their full length regularly, then our brain sees that and adapts and shortens our active, usable range of motion. So we've got to make sure we use our muscles through their full range of motion. The third fundamental is alignment. And this refers to both static alignment, which is your standing or your normal resting posture. For example, anterior pelvic tilt versus posterior pelvic tilt. It also refers to your dynamic alignment. And this is where we've got the head of your femur. So your leg bone, the head of it is right here. It's like a ball and socket joint into the pelvis. We've got to keep that aligned within the joint whenever you're moving around. Otherwise, you can get into problems like impingement, femoroacetabular impingement in the case of the hip, where that causes inflammation and pain. We use the term centration because we want to keep the head of the femur centered in the socket as you move around. Another example of poor alignment, poor dynamic alignment, is if you have internal snapping hip, where you're lifting your leg or you're lowering your leg and you get that clunk. That's an example of a muscle shutting off, so poor activation, causing poor alignment and that snapping sensation in the hip. Now that you understand the 3 fundamental things you need to keep your hips moving freely and without pain, let's go through 6 exercises that will cover these 3 keys. And what I recommend you do is you follow along to get good form of the exercises, and then at the end, I'll break down how many sets and reps to do of each. So let's get moving. The first exercise is the standing glute contraction. This one is really simple. It's an isometric contraction of the glutes while maintaining good lower body alignment. What we want to do is we want to start in good posture, even balance between the forefoot and the heel, so nice and balanced and centered. From here, I'm going to slowly ramp up the contraction of the glutes. So I start a little bit of contraction and then I ramp it up, and we're going to go as hard as we can to the max level while maintaining good alignment of the lower body. So what I recommend is you think about slight internal rotation of the hips. So the femurs turn in just a little bit, like 1 to 2 degrees as you ramp it up. And that helps you to maintain good alignment through the lower body. And then once you get to your max level of contraction, keeping everything above the hips relaxed and breathing, you hold it for 10 seconds. Keeping strong contraction through the glutes and other muscles that will co-contract along with this. And then after 10 seconds, you slowly release all of the muscles, like you're down from 100%, 90, 80, 70, all the way down to 0. and then you fully relax in between. You can shake it out a little bit, and then you do it again. A couple other key points. If you know the short and skinny foot, do it. Activate those foot intrinsic muscles. If not, we'll drop a link to another foot intrinsics video to wake up your dead feet in the description down below. So you activate your feet, activate your pelvic floor first. So as if you're trying to stop yourself from peeing, or you're stopping peeing midstream. And then from there, glutes, ramp it up from 0 to 10, 20, 30, 40, all the way up to max. Once you're at max, hold it. 10 seconds as you're breathing, you're keeping your shoulders relaxed, your low back relaxed, as relaxed as possible, and keeping everything aligned. So that slight internal hip rotation, so your knees don't turn out, so you don't go to the outsides of your feet. You keep your balance forefoot to heel, and then you gradually let everything go. Very basic, the standing glute contraction. And one little variant I wanted to show you was the seated version, because this you can do at your desk. And the other benefit of doing both is now our hips are in this flexed position. So if, for example, you like to squat and you want to get down low, you want your glutes to be working at the bottom range. Otherwise, you have really poor hip and pelvic stability, and that can lead to low back pain, hip pain, or poor alignment in the lower body. So you're sitting down, you could be working at your desk, whatever it is, and all you want to think about is slowly again ramping up the activation of your glutes, and what you should feel is yourself get taller. Maintain good posture, you're not hyperextending, but you're in good, tall, relaxed posture. And once you're up to the max level of activation of your glutes, you hold it for about 10 seconds, you keep breathing naturally, keep your shoulders relaxed. And after 10 seconds, you gradually ramp down the level of contraction of the glutes. So we call this the ReBUTT technique because this helps you to get your butt back, get your glutes working because they shut off if you've been sitting a lot. So this is a good one to do if you sit for your job or for whatever reason. If you sit a lot, throw it in there every 20 minutes, half an hour, every hour. It's better than doing nothing because it keeps that neuromuscular pathway active so you don't lose the glute activation and you get that gluteal amnesia. The next exercise is the Slumpy Psoas activator. This is one of our unique exercises that gets an often sleepy muscle activated and trains good alignment, good posture, and breaks associated movement patterns. So this is one of our dissociation techniques, which breaks a commonly associated and dysfunctional movement pattern. For the Slumpy Psoas activator, sit on something solid. So you don't want to be on a wheelie chair or a really soft, cushiony chair. So a solid little bench seat is great. And you're going to start off in the slumpy position. So bad posture, tuck your tail so you're in a posterior tilt. Basically the worst sitting posture you could have. From here, you're going to lift one foot, bring it out to the side a little bit of abduction, and a little bit of external rotation. That'll help get the psoas activated and keep the TFL muscle off, which it commonly overworks. From here, you bring your opposite hand to kind of the inside top part of the knee, and you're gonna apply pressure. So drive the knee into the hand and the hand into the knee. When you've got that pressure, then you get into really good posture, get up tall, and think of sticking your butt out, anteriorly tilting the pelvis, maintaining pressure throughout. And what we're aiming for is to activate this psoas muscle, which is important for lumbar spine stability and for maintaining good dynamic alignment of the hip joint as you move. Keep the ankle relaxed, keep breathing naturally, and hold it for about 5 seconds. When you're done, keep the psoas muscle on, which is around this area, as you lower down. So lower down slowly and intentionally. Then you start again, slump down. We'll go the other side this time. Lift the leg just off the ground, the foot just off the ground. You don't want it up here, because then it's going to be hard to get into good alignment. So just off the ground, apply pressure, hand to knee, knee to hand, and then get yourself aligned. Think of sucking the leg into the pelvis as well, which will help to get activation of the psoas. Keep that pressure. keep breathing, keep the ankle relaxed, keep sucking the leg in, stay tall, and maintain activation as you lower down to the ground. So this exercise helps you to restore this good position of the pelvis, this good alignment of the pelvis. It works the psoas in its shortened range of motion, which is where it often gets weak, and it helps to get some core stability going as well. So there's a lot of benefits to this exercise. And again, it's one that you can do throughout the day when you're sitting. If you sit at the desk a lot, it's a great one to keep this really important muscle for low back pain and for healthy hips. The next exercise is the standing hip rotation. And this exercise activates what's known as the deep hip rotator muscle group. And the deep hip rotator muscle group includes 6 different muscles: obturators, gemelli, piriformis. And these muscles, even though they're named the hip rotators, yes, they can rotate the hip, but they're more important for stability of the hips and the pelvis. So these muscles are really, really important for healthy hips. The exercise is very simple. Again, it looks simple, but it can be challenging. We want to start off here with the active feet, the active arch. So if you don't know, we've got a link down below. If you don't know how to get the foot intrinsic muscles and activate and get the short and skinny foot going, then that's going to be really important. I'm not going to explain it here. I'm just going to show you what I'm doing. So we start off, get the foot activated. I'm trying to bring the forefoot towards the heel and make the foot skinny across the metatarsals, across here. So I've got that going. So I've got an active arch going. Now I'm standing on one foot, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to go through closed chain hip rotation. So I'm externally rotating this hip now. So I'm going to rotate, my pelvis is going to look that way, my belly button is going to look that way, and I'm just going to hold it, and I'm going to try to get deeper into that range of motion. Even though there's no motion, I'm still actively trying to activate these external hip rotators out here to get deeper. And then I'm going to go to internal hip rotation. I can use my toe for balance, tapping. And again, I'm trying to get deeper into this range of motion, keeping my leg, my support leg straight, activating the muscles in here and deep in the hip. And you can do 1 rep on one side and then switch to the other side, because it can get pretty fatiguing. And if you get really fatigued, you'll really start to lose your balance. So active arch, I got the foot intrinsics on, maintaining good posture. External rotation, trying to get deeper into the range, the end range. This is really important to activate those muscles. Constantly trying to get deeper and work the muscles as hard as I can. And then under control, with muscle activation throughout, I'm going into internal rotation. So you might feel that shift from external rotation, which is more of the posterior aspect of the hip, to when you go to internal rotation, you'll get more of the anterior or the front of the hip muscles going. And then you can go to center and then down to the ground. So it's really important to stay in good alignment, stay tall, work at that end range of motion. And if you need balance, just use your toe, tap the ground, support yourself, and keep those muscles on. Like I said, these muscles, even though they're called the rotators, yes, they do rotation, but they're so important for good stability of the hips and the pelvis and maintaining that centration, the good alignment, the dynamic alignment of the head of the femur in the socket as you move around. The first 3 exercises we went through today already have focused on muscle activation and alignment. Now we're going to start to work the active range of motion component to keep your hips moving freely and without pain. We're going to do the supine hip PNF next. For this exercise, you want to lie down on the ground here, and we're doing one leg at a time. Now, it's called PNF, proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation. It's just a set of various techniques, and they've got different patterns. And this just hits one of the PNF patterns of the hips. For this exercise, we're going to move the leg in big circles in both directions. We'll start in one direction, going from straight leg to the outside, sweeping along the ground first. So what we're trying to do is combine different movements. So we're going to start to lift the leg off the ground and go out to the side while externally rotating. You can see my toe rotating out. That's external rotation. Go as far as you can. You're going to feel a stretch through the adductors. If you'll work through the hip flexors, and then we start to lift it up. Now, the whole time for this exercise, the most important point is maintaining even pressure under the pelvis. So underneath the butt, kind of a little bit higher than your glutes, you want even pressure on the ground throughout. Keeping your knee straight as well. We're going to lift it up, keeping the knee straight, ankle relaxed. And once we're lifted up as high as we can, we come across the body. And now once we go to cross the body, we go to internal rotation. So we're turning my foot, rotating the femur internally. Going across the body as far as I can, maintaining even pressure under the pelvis or on the ground with the pelvis. And then I sweep it again. So what it doesn't look like, I'm going to lose even pressure, is I'm rotating my pelvis, my right side of my butt comes off the ground, and I'm just trying to get as far as I can, but I lose that even pressure on the ground with my pelvis. When I lose that, I lose stability through the core and through the deep hip and pelvic muscles. So again, it's rotating out with external rotation, lifting the leg out with external rotation, sweeping it around in a big circle, keeping the knee straight, ankle relaxed. And then as I come across the midline of the body, I switch to internal rotation. Again, only going as far as I can, maintaining pressure, even pressure under my pelvis. So we do all reps in one direction, and then you can keep the same side and reverse direction. So once you cross the midline of the body, it's internal rotation. So the femur turns this way, lift it up as high as you can, keeping your foot across the midline if you can, ankles relaxed, and then we're going out, and we switch to external rotation. Breathing throughout, keeping the shoulders as relaxed as you can. And when you do this, you'll do circles in one direction, then you'll switch directions, do your reps in the other direction, and then you can switch sides. And by doing it that way, you're going to get a little bit of a challenge on the endurance of those muscles. So fight through it. Start off with a few lower range of the reps, and then work your way up to the higher end of the range of reps. The second to last exercise is the adductor iso lunge. And this one can be really deceiving because a lot of people have seen lateral lunges where you kind of step out to the side and then you push off that way, or you step out and you push off using your abductors, the outer hip muscles. This is the opposite. It looks the same, but it's the opposite activation pattern. And I use the opposite activation pattern because I want to lengthen and strengthen the adductors. Again, I want that active range of motion. I want to build strength in the adductors. A lot of people get groin pulls and play tennis, play hockey, play soccer. Groin pulls are common. The reason why is because when you get stretched out, we don't have that strength because we've trained lateral movements is just pushing off, but lateral movements is also pulling. So this is really important for you athletes who might get groin strains every once in a while. So for this exercise, we want to spread out. This is hip abduction, abduction. We don't want to go to our max range. I don't want to be stretched out here doing the exercise. I want to be well within that range for the first set. So you're going to do multiple sets. So for the first set, keep it conservative, just a little bit. Then we want to squeeze the feet together to activate the muscles in here. These are the adductors. Keeping my feet pointing straight ahead the whole time, squeezing the feet together. Keeping good alignment, good posture in the upper body. From here, I maintain the squeeze like I'm trying to squish the floor together. As I straighten this knee, you can activate the quad here, straighten the knee fully, and then I maintain that squeeze so the adductors are working through the concentric contraction and the eccentric contraction. So here, this adductor is shortening, so that's concentric. This adductor is lengthening, that's termed eccentric. We want both of those muscle actions. So go back and forth, nice and slow. You can pause for a second at the end so I can fully straighten the knee, make sure I get to the full range. I'm in good alignment here, and then going the other way. This is where that body awareness and knowing what you're trying to achieve is important. Because if you just watch this without any audio, without any coaching, you're not going to do this activation pattern, and you're not going to get the benefits that we just talked about. So that's the adductor iso lunge. Such a great an important technique. The last exercise for today to keep your hips healthy and pain-free is one of my favorite strength building exercise for the lower body, which is the reverse lunge. I find the reverse lunge superior to squats, deadlifts, especially for me in my phase of life now. I'm 43 years old, where I want to continue to build strength, but when I do squats and I up the weight, my back can get a little irritated or my knees can get a little touchy. So the reverse lunge, I can load it up heavy and I just come out feeling muscle soreness, but my joints, my low back don't get achy at all. So it's a great exercise for that reason. It also helps you to train some one leg balance. It's a very functional movement pattern because everything we do on our feet, we're split up. We're not in this parallel stance, almost everything we do on our feet. And it helps to lengthen the rectus femoris and the quads at the bottom of it. Whereas the squat, those muscles don't get that lengthening effect. Reverse lunge is by far my favorite lower body strengthening exercise. For the exercise, you can start off with just body weight, standing in good posture, and you just step back. What we're trying to do is get the knee to kiss the ground, lengthen through the hips, so I'm not flexed here, lengthen through the hips, keep my foot flat on the ground, and get my knee as far over forward my foot as I can, keeping pressure through the heel and the forefoot. From here, I pull myself up with that front leg. So I'm stepping back, kiss the knee to the ground, get length through the hip flexors, dorsiflexion with my knee driving forwards, and I bring myself up with the front leg. So in actual speed, it looks more like that. Like so. So you can load it up with dumbbells, you can load it up with the barbell, work the reps and sets that I'm going to outline, but once you get to that top end of the sets and the reps and it feels easy, that's when you want to start to load it up and build strength, because this exercise is one of the best at solidifying all of the improvements that we made with exercises that we've done previously. Those deep muscles will be working. We're training that good alignment, especially when you go down. You make sure that your thigh is pointing in the same direction of your foot. So they're both pointing straight ahead. If we're like this, that's not good. That's valgus knee. If we're like that, that's like varus knee, dynamic varus. So we want to keep straight, neutral alignment. Great exercise. I definitely recommend that everybody who can do it does it. Now, let's go through how many sets and reps to do of every exercise. For the standing glute contraction, do 1 set of 4 reps, holding the contractions for 10 seconds. For the Slumpy Psoas activator, perform 1 set, 4 reps per side, holding each for 5 seconds. For the standing hip rotation, do 1 to 2 sets, 3 reps per side, holding each activation for 5 seconds. For the Supine Hip PNF, do 1 to 2 sets of 3 reps in each direction on each side. For the Adductor iso lunge, do 2 sets of 3 reps in each direction. And finally, for the reverse lunge, you can really vary this, but I like to do 2 to 4 sets of 6 to 10 reps per side. So those are the fundamental principles and 6 exercises to address those fundamental principles to keep your hips healthy and pain-free. We've got a couple other hip videos for you here and here if you want to further explore our methods here on YouTube. But if you want a comprehensive step-by-step program with multiple phases, over 40 exercises to keep your hips moving freely and without pain, check out our Hip Pain Solution program and let me be your coach and guide you through this process over the next few months. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you soon. Keep moving.